Have you ever watched a movie? Maybe at the cinema, maybe on Netflix, just on your iPhone or whatever. But you'll notice something. Every time you watch a film, at the very end of that film, you'll see something at the very end, and it's called credits. In other words, it tells you all the people that were involved in making that film possible. Usually when you watch a film, there are hundreds and hundreds of people involved in the production of it. But why does it take so many people to make a film? And on top of that, these films aren't cheap to make. They cost millions of pounds. Avatar the movie cost $250 million. That is a lot of money to make a film. Why is it so expensive? Now listen, I've made films. I've made 4 of them. And they didn't cost millions of pounds. In fact, they didn't even cost thousands of pounds. They didn't even cost hundreds. The truth is, they cost nothing. And I'm going to explain to you how you can do it, starting right now. Okay, in this video, I've broken it down into 11 segments. And I think there's a lot more to it than just these 11 little elements. But basically, this will give you the fundamentals of how we make a movie. The first one is the most important, which is you need to decide. That's probably the biggest thing, is making the decision. Because when I made the decision to make a film, people thought I was crazy. It's like, what are you doing? You can't make a film. You can't do that. It's impossible. How are you going to do that? And then you've got self-doubt as well. You'll be telling yourself you can't do it. And how is it possible? Blah, blah, blah. But let's just get past that. Once we've made the decision, we've then decided that is our intention and that is what we're going to do. We don't know how we're going to do it. We haven't got a clue where to start. But what we do know is that we are going to do it. We've made the decision. Once the decision is made that you're going to make a film, the next element has to be the story. Without story, there can be no movie. So how do you get a story? Well, you create one. You invent one. It's called an imagination. I think we've all got one. And you've just got to sit there and imagine a story that you want to tell the audience. What I did is use inspiration. So I'd watch local documentaries or news that's been happening around the world and people's experiences. In fact, every film that I've ever done, there's always huge elements of the movie that were based on real events because it makes it more authentic. And that's the type of films I like to do. Films that have got substance to them. So if you've got a story, no matter what, how silly it may sound, if you like that story, then that's where we start. You've got to get the story. Step number 3, create a script. If you don't know what a script is, I'm sure you do, but if you don't, I'll tell you. A script is basically you're going to write down every single word that every single character says in your story. That's your script or your dialogue. Once you've written that, we move on to the next stage, which is budget. Budget basically means how much can you budge? How much are you willing to spend on making this film? Because it costs money. At some level, it will cost money. And how much money are you willing to spend on the film? That's your budget. So when you have these huge studios and they make films, they have massive budgets. So they'll say to a director, that says, right, we're willing to give you this much money. That's the executive producers. This much money within that amount. You often hear the saying, oh, we've gone over budget. But we're not really focusing on budget at the moment, because in this video, this is about how you can make a film with no money, meaning no budget, zero, zilch, no thing. Can that be done? Yeah, of course it can. Anything can be done when you use your imagination. What I will say though, the bigger the budget, in most cases, the better the film. Because if you've got a big budget, you can employ really good actors, because really, really good actors cost a lot of money. Well, let me rephrase that. Not really good actors, but established actors. For example, if I got a big enough budget to pay someone like Denzel Washington or Brad Pitt or someone like that, and I got them in one of my films, then the demand for my film's going to be higher. More people are going to want to watch it because Brad Pitt's in it, or Denzel Washington, or whoever. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't mean that they're the best actors in the world. It just means that they'll attract bigger audiences. Okay, we're now on number 5, which is location. Where is your film going to be located? In other words, is it going to be in England, America, Spain? A lot of films are filmed abroad because of tax reasons. But we're not doing that. We're not a big studio. This video is not about that. This is about independent filmmakers, which means you're independent of the big studios. You're doing it on your own. You're financing it yourself. Whatever your budget is, in this case, 0. Where are you going to shoot it? Where are you going to film it? So if you've got a scene and it's in a house, you've got to find a house to shoot in. And then if you've got another scene and it's in a coffee shop, then you've got to go and find a coffee shop to film in. Now, this is quite easy to do, and these places are quite easy to find, but they'll want compensation. In other words, they'll let you use their property to film in as long as you pay them. Remember, it's all about budget. If you've got a big budget, you can do that. If you haven't, then you can't. So how do you do it? Again, it's sort of, you have to blag it. Okay, so once you've got your story, you've got your script, you've got your budget, in this case 0, then what you need is location where you're going to film it. If it's filmed in a hospital, you need a hospital. If it's filmed in a nightclub, you need a nightclub. You've got to think of all these things. Then we get to the most important thing of making a film, which is actors. You can't have a film if there's no actors, can you? Now remember what I said about budget. If you've got a big budget, you can get big actors. But what if you've got no budget and you can't afford to pay the actors? People aren't going to work for free, are they? Well, this is interesting because there's people out there who want something called a show reel. That means they want to be actors, but they haven't acted in anything. This is a great opportunity for both you as a filmmaker and them as an actor, because you can collaborate together. In other words, you work together and they get to act, you get to film them, and they get something called a show reel. So then they can go for a job, a paid job or whatever, and say, all right, this is my portfolio. This is what I've done. I worked on this independent film. It benefits both parties. Okay, so where do you get actors from? Where are they? They do exist. There is 7 billion people in this world, and we've all got different things that we like to do. And there's a lot of people in the world who like to act. Acting's quite interesting. I'm not an actor. I don't profess to be one, even though I do act in some of my films because I couldn't get the actor, so I had to do it. But anyway, again, you have to blag it, don't you? Okay, so where do these actors come from? Right, the best place to go is the wonderful world of the internet. social media, Facebook. Look for people who want to get involved in acting. Approach them through social media and invite them. Say, right, okay, I'm an independent filmmaker. I want to make a film. This is the story. Would you be interested in working on it with me? Now, more than likely, they're going to say, oh, who are you? What have you done? So that's a good thing. If you've got some pre-recorded stuff, again, a show reel, you can show it to them and say, right, these are the type of films I make and this is what I can do. Are you interested in working? Through all my experience, it's always been positive, and yeah, people love working on independent films. So getting actors is not a problem. I worked with several actors and I've made other films with them. So for example, if I've worked on one film with them, we get on so well that we'll end up doing another project together, and it goes on and on and on. So there you go. But you need actors, and that's how you do it. By yeah, by looking for them. If you look for something, you'll find it, and that's how you do it. Right, so I'm looking on my laptop here, or should I say my MacBook. Now the MacBook's really important, and I suggest you get one if you're going to be a filmmaker. So we've said you've got to decide, then you write your story, then you write your script, then you figure out your budget or budget zero, then you think about your location, where you're going to film it, i.e. indoor, outdoor. Give you a tip as well, always film in summer, never in winter, because the days are shorter in winter and light is a very important thing when making a film. Then you get your actors, and your actors you can find from social media, Facebook, groups online. Just get out there and you'll find them. It's quite an interesting area, and people who are actors are usually very passionate. And you do have a lot of fun with them because they tend to be very creative. Here's the next one. Equipment. Okay, what equipment do you need to make a film? Okay, so let's think about it. I'm filming now on an iPhone, but can you make a film on an iPhone? Yeah, I suppose you can. It's a camera. But if you want it to be a really good film, you need a really good camera. So what is a good camera? Okay, so one of the best cameras you can get for cinematic is something called an Arri Alexa. Now that camera is very expensive. I think it's around $70,000 or something like that. And you can't necessarily buy them. You have to hire them from a company called Panavision. But if you do hire them, they cost an absolute fortune. So yeah, if you've got a low budget, that ain't gonna happen, is it? So you need a camera which is good enough for you to make a cinematic movie. Okay, the camera that I used and still use is called a Panasonic. That's right, Panasonic Lumix S5. When I first bought that camera, it was about £2,000. They've dropped in price now, maybe £1,000, something like that, which is very cheap for a camera. But I bought that on the basis that I'm going to get my bloody money's worth. With that camera, it's called full frame, which basically means it looks very cinematic, and it films in 4K, so it's 4K footage. And once you use that type of camera, you have good lenses on them. And what the lens does, it creates something called depth of field. So it makes the background look more distant and the actual actor pop out. It's like if you look at this image, it's very flat. But if I use an example like this, I don't know if that's a glasses case, but I'll just use it. If I sort of zoom in, I want that to be sharp, but then the background to be blurry. Now it's not doing it. Can you see that? But if that was sharp and then I was blurry, that's called depth of field. Basically, it looks almost 3-4 dimensional. And that's what they do in films, instead of it looking flat. So you have to get a pretty good camera with a good lens. And I'd say the Panasonic Lumix S5 is perfect and reasonably priced. So that's the camera I use. Okay, you have something else as well, which is not just the visual thing. you have audio. It's like I'm filming this now on my phone, but when I'm recording, it's not going straight into the phone itself. If you look here, I've got a little dot there. Can you see it? That's called a lav mic or lavalier mic. All actors use them on big productions, but usually you can't see them. Usually hidden under your clothes. Or you'll have something called a boom mic, which is a microphone which is just above your head, but you won't see it in the shot because you have to get really good audio. I've got pretty good equipment. I've got boom mics, I've got lav mics. I've gone a little bit crazy with my equipment. Midlife crisis, this is what you do. But do you need all that? Not necessarily. You just have to make sure that you're in an environment that's very quiet. It's like in here, there's no echoes. There's no background noise, you can't hear anything, which is perfect for making a film. But if I was filming outside and you had busy traffic and planes going past, and you got to remember that the audio is going to pick all that up, and that's not good. So basically what equipment you need is a pretty good camera and good audio equipment. My audio equipment was quite expensive, but you can get it very cheap. Again, but you only start doing that once you want to take it really serious. So you don't necessarily need the best equipment. You really don't. And believe me, I've spent a lot of money on equipment. And then now I've came to realise that I didn't even need this stuff. But there you go. You live and learn. Okay, the next thing is directing. Okay, so what's directing? This is the thing I was a bit apprehensive about. Directing is basically telling people what to do, and I didn't like doing that. So you've got your story, you've got your script, you've got your actors. They're there on set. That means that they're ready for you. You've got the camera in your hand. They're not just going to say the words. You've got to direct them. So you could say to them, for example, right, read this line, but I want you to read it like this. Or as you read that line, I want you to walk in this direction. And that's what you do. You're directing the people. You're telling them where to walk and what to do and blah, blah, blah. You have to do that. When I first started making films, I felt really uncomfortable telling people what to do. But it's part of it. And if you create a good rapport with your actors, they expect it anyway. Because if you're the director, it's your vision. So you have to articulate that vision onto them so they know. So yeah, directing. I'm pretty good at directing now because the actors I work with, they know what I'm like and I know what they're like. So sometimes I'll grab them like, stand there, stand here. But it's great. It's all good fun. So directing. There you go. Right, the next one is editing. So once you've filmed all your shots with your camera and your audio and lighting, I didn't mention that, you have to have good lighting. For example, it's quite light in here, but if you notice, there's a light. Can you see it there? It's above my head, which isn't really good. If I was going to light this scene, see how the shadow's behind my hand? Can you see that? That's bad, but this isn't a film. What I would do, I'd have a light behind me. And I'd have a side light here. Okay, that's all lighting. That's equipment as well. You don't need it, but it makes the image look better. But yeah, editing is basically getting all the footage that you filmed and clicking it all together like a jigsaw. That's called editing. Now, there's lots of software that you can buy out there. The most popular ones has to be Final Cut Pro, which is what I use. And there's another one. I should know this. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There's like 3 main ones, but they all sort of do the same thing. But yeah, I use Apple Pro, Final Cut Pro by Apple. You need a powerful computer as well. If you're filming 4K footage, it's going to take a lot of energy. Okay, so you need a powerful computer. I went for a MacBook, an Apple MacBook, and this can handle it very well. Once you've put all your scenes together and the editing process is done, which takes the longest, by the way, it takes a long time to edit it. That's why you usually have a team of editors. But again, if you're doing it on your own, you can't put the work in. I'd probably say for a 20-minute film, I've spent about 100 hours editing each film. Yeah, it takes a while. Once you've done that, then you have to do the next step, which is sound effects. Okay, so what's sound effects? Sound effects is basically the sound. It's not rocket science, is it? There's something called Foley. Now, what Foley is adding background sounds in the scene. It's like now if you listen, you can hear a noise. Listen. That's called Foley or white noise. There's always noises in the background. So what you do, you add pre-recorded sounds in the background. So say I had a scene and it was in a public park and I had two people and I was filming them. You couldn't hear the birds singing. What I would do is go onto some sort of website, download that sound of birds singing, and then put it into the edited version. So it makes it sound more realistic. Also, music's a big one as well. You want that dramatic sounds and suspense. I use something called Epidemic Sounds, which is a subscription which costs about 20 quid a month, something like that. But you can literally download as much Foley and music as you like. Music makes the film. True story. Okay, the next one is color grading, or put simply, coloring. When you make a film, it has to have like a look to it. Now, what the terminology is called is a LUT, an L-U-T. And LUT stands for look up table. It's basically how does it look. I'm going to give you an example now. I'm going to do this really quick just to give you an idea. I'm going to make this scene look more cinematic. So I know the camera's wobbling a little bit, so give me a minute. Right, okay, let's make this scene or this image that you're seeing now look more cinematic. Go. Right, it looks better, doesn't it? What if I add some Foley in the background? Can you hear it? Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to now create a sound that is going to build suspense. And basically that's how you do it. There you go. It's all smoke and mirrors. So colouring or colour grading, that's what you do on the final part of making a movie. Okay, so we've come to the end of the video. See what I mean? It looks better with the light behind me, but it's dark in here. But anyway, hope we've learned something today about, see the lights hit my face now. See how the light hits there and it's dark there? Yeah, you're learning all the time. Okay, so I hope you've learned something today in this video. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Again, I just watch YouTube videos and that's how I learn everything that I've learned. And I've tried to condense it and put it into maybe a 25-minute video just for you. I don't know how long this video is going to be because the next process is edit it. So I've got to edit this together. But hopefully you enjoyed it and hopefully you learned something. If you ever do want to watch any of my films, you can do because they don't cost anything. They're free. They're all in the description below. One's called Domestic, the other one's called Trepidation, the other one's called Red Hood Redemption, and the other one is called Session. And they're all in the link. And each one took about 3 days to make, but they took a lot longer to edit. But yeah, if you want to be a filmmaker, go for it. What's stopping you? What is stopping you? The truth is, the only thing that's stopping you is yourself.